Hello, my name's John. These are some Space Hulk Genestealers from 2009 and 2011, and you're watching Wargames, Models, and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today's video is all about these Genestealers from the 2009 and 2011 edition of Space Hulk. They had the same Genestealers in both of them. I've had both sets and I've bought extra Genestealers over the years, so I'm not sure exactly which sets these come from. But I was rooting around a few boxes whilst looking for some conversion parts for some of the Armageddon stuff that I'm working on. And I found these, and I immediately dropped everything I was doing and thought, I need to work out something to do with these. And I was thinking about a diorama. But the one thing I find with dioramas is they can be quite static. You can't play them in games, that kind of thing. So I wanted to work out a way to make a diorama that I could play. So looking at these various different Genestealers that I've got, they're not the same as the new ones. They're slightly smaller, but these are all posed in really nice ways. I thought about making a group of them on a stand that could be a stand-in for another model. So I started thinking about how to put them together, and the scene from Aliens when they look through the roof and they're all crawling down the roof came to mind, and I thought if I make a horde of Genestealers on a base, pick the base size to represent another model, then they'd work quite nicely in a Genestealer army. So what I've done, I've found a base the size that a Carnifex sits on, and these Genestealers, as I put them together, are going to be a stand-in for a Carnifex. So I'm not going to finish it in this video. There are lots of little details that I want to add. I've glued this sheet of styrene onto the base and put sprue glue around the edge, and I've got to wait for that to go off fully before I kind of clean that up. But I've got various models that I want to put together to start creating this playable diorama. So let's get started. So something I've done off screen, I've started making this component section that is going to sit on the base like that, just to give a little bit of height to the models themselves. So I started that already, and one of the Genestealers is going to sit on top of that one just there like that. So I'm going to get that stuck on right now. Now I had this idea, as I said, I found these Genestealers and wanted to work out a way to have an interesting dynamic kind of diorama that I could play in games. And I really like the idea of a Horde base rather than, say, a monster or a vehicle, which is what I've come up with here. So I've got an idea of making a few of these for different races, so expect to see more of these videos with Horde bases. And I thought this one works quite nicely as a starting point, as the Carnifex base isn't too large, but it works quite nicely with all of these Genestealers. I did have a little play around with the idea of maybe some Lictors or a Death Leaper or something like that, but I ended up coming up with the decision, actually, yeah, Carnifex, the impact of loads of Genestealers running down a corridor or something like that could have a kind of same feeling as a Carnifex running through a squad of other models and that kind of thing. So what my aim is in this video is to stick down and construct the central part of this base, and then the side sections I'm not going to stick them down because I want to work out the best way of painting this, and I think this is all going to be down to sub-assemblies. Now let's get this back section put together first. So that first Genestealer is on the top there, and then I have another one just here And I've done a slight conversion on this one. Originally, the bottom bracket was the other way round with the Genestealer sitting on it, but I've trimmed the Genestealer, flipped it round, and I want to sit that just on the front like this. Now what you'll see, the pipe just there is getting a little bit in the way, so I need to trim that a little bit. So just going to trim it, and because of the age and type of the plastic, it's going to fling around the place, so safety squint is needed. And now that sits a lot nicer in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some sprue glue on the bottom and then just go for normal plastic weld around the edges. Reason why I'm using sprue glue is it doesn't have a flat base, this piece, and I can't be bothered to flatten it off. I've kind of having this idea, I don't want to leave it too long before starting the conversion, because for one thing I don't want to lose any interest in it, and I actually want to get it started and to a place where I can kind of think about the next stages and so on. So while I glue this, let's talk about the grey section on here. So that is part of the Necromunda Zone Mortalis sets, which I think now are going to be used also in Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40,000, I think. But they are really nice sets that give a really nice kind of environment to play in. So let's hold this a little bit. So there's going to be no cuts in this video. As with all of my videos, it's real time. So yes, I've prepped a few bits beforehand, but everything else you see is going to be real time. The only time I ever pause it is if I have to let the dog out, or someone's at the door, or there's a phone call. So there is this first section here. Let's hold it up on this base. There we go. So that's sitting just there. Now I have got another one of the Genestealers, which is this one, which is one that's bursting out of the floor, but I've actually trimmed it because I want to put it here, bursting out of the wall. And as you can see, it's a little bit tricky because that hand just there is kind of getting in the way a little bit. So my option is to trim that hand off and replace it with another Genestealer hand, which I have just here. I do have a few of the old kits, so I'm looking at these for this conversion. So yeah, that drastic snip off the old hand, and that one is gonna fit on there quite nicely. So let's stick this in place and then stick the hand in. It's quite a warm day today, so the glue is staying pliable for a little bit longer than I kind of like, but let's do a little bit of capillary action. See, I want this to look like it is bursting out of the panel. I know the panel's not thick enough for it to be coming all the way through, but I just want that visual look. And a base with narrative, that's what I'm kind of looking for. So I always like a model with narrative, and this is going to be a model with narrative. So that's in place, and what I need to do now is glue this other hand in place. So let's get a little bit of glue just on there, and I think I'm going to hold it with tweezers to begin with. There we go. A little bit of plastic gunk on there. Let's just move that up as I knock it out of place. And this is the tricky thing with the pre-sculpted models. You kind of are trying to fit in with them rather than kind of convert and move the positions. I am aware I could re-sculpt bits. There we go. But what I will do, where it's touching, I'm just going to touch some glue on there for a little bit more of capillary action. And get that hand in place. Oops. Just undone everything that I've done. Never mind, let's take our time while we do this. I was thinking about the paint scheme for this, and I'm thinking the traditional Genestealer colours, as it does look like they're on a Hulk. But yeah, drop it in the comments, what do you think? Should I go traditional or something else? Okay, there's the first section of this base. So what I'm looking to do now, I want to get the centre of this base and put this in place. What I will do at the end of this video, I'll put some photos of the work in progress so you can see what it's looking like. I'm going to go with a bit of capillary action to begin with this glue. I might put some sprue glue if there's any gaps, but I can't see any gaps at the moment. Yeah, I've got a few ideas for these Horde bases, and I actually have in my large collection of bits box and sprues, I do have enough bits to do the idea I had for Imperial Guard. So if you'd like to see that, drop it in the comments, and really like to know what you guys think of this idea of Horde bases. Okay, so that's now on there like that. And then got this Genestealer here with, it's holding a Terminator's helmet there. I might change that. Sorry about the noise, a dog scratching there. Might put another hand on that, but I might do that later on. I'm going to leave it as is for now. But this Genestealer is going to be, let's hold these in place. That's going to be at the front, crawling forwards. So I'm going to put a little bit of sprue glue underneath the base because it's a little bit uneven, and then do a little bit of capillary action with the rest of my glue. So let's get that in place and then go for a bit of capillary action down the sides here, and that will also melt the sprue glue underneath into a bit more of a thinner paste. It's been quite hot recently and my sprue glue has started to thicken up a little bit, so it's going to be a necessary thing soon to add a bit more glue to it to thin it down, but it's not for right now. Okay, so at the moment, as you can see from the top down, it's quite a line of miniatures, but that's okay. Let me just sort the dog out while that's drying a little bit. Sorry about that, little old dog, not quite knowing where he wants to sit and rest. He's now on the sofa under a blanket. Okay, So that's starting to dry really nicely. So another model, another Genestealer I've got here is this one, which I'm going to stick, not right now, but when I come to after painting it, to this side just there. So when I take some photos at the end of the video, I will put that in position. One thing really interesting about this one, same with quite a few of the other Genestealers from that Space Hulk, if we count the legs, we got 2 legs, we only actually have 3 arms, because they hid some arms, so you've got the shoulder in there, but you haven't got the rest of the arm. And they did that on quite a few of the models, just to help with the injection moulding, but you really don't notice, and when it's on here, you're not going to notice that there. So that one's going to go on there, but as I said, not right now. Got this one. This was one of my favourites, crawling down the beam full of skulls and things. That one is actually going to go on this side like that, with a few extra details on the base. Not sure what I'm going to do there yet, but again, that's one I'm going to glue on afterwards when I've done painting, because it'd be quite difficult to get to these sections. But I do have this Genestealer that I've started that I need to finish off to put running along the back section here. So I've used actually one of the Genestealer heads from that Space Hulk set and one of the arms, just because I like the position of the arm, and also these heads have really long disgusting tongues, and it kind of works with the whole kind of crew. So let's get a few more parts to stick together for this one, and then this one should be okay to stick to the base when I put it together. But we'll have a look. If it blocks anything, then that will be a later on, once things are painted. I find sub-assemblies are really useful, but my patience with them sometimes isn't there. So sometimes I do end up just going, no, I'll just stick everything together and then work out how to paint it, or not paint bits that I can't reach. That's a common thing that I do. If you don't see it or you can't get to it, don't worry about it. So that arm's gonna go in there like this. So I've still got a few bits to make from the Armageddon box set, and this video is only about a week behind on the releases. I tend to not leave massive kind of jumps between videos, like film a load and then leave it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I tend to do 1 or 2 videos, then put them up to then go live the following week or the week after that, and then in that time I'll do a few more, so I don't go too far ahead. But also it's when I get time to do hobby. It's life does get in the way, doesn't it? Bit of capillary action on there, and that's probably going to move the arm, but there we go. I did like these Genestealers when they came out, but when they updated them again with the most recent Genestealers, I kind of got a few of them, not sure what to do with them, but now I've got this, kind of worked out nicely. Right, so I'm going to put this in shot so we can kind of have a little bit of a workout of where things are going to sit. So I think this needs to move slightly further forward, as this guy is going to stand just there running along. So let's have a look at what arms I've got. So here's one of the old sprues. I think straight away I'm going to go for this arm just here, as it's bent to a degree where I can kind of not hit that section or get caught up on the rest of this stand. But let's try and remember to get some of these old mould lines off. Mould lines are becoming less and less of a problem with the newer models, but over time, as the moulds get used, you do find as they wear you get a little bit more to clean up if you get the same kits over and over. Okay, so that's going to go down a little bit like that, so let's get this in here. So there's going to be there's 7 Genestealers in total on this stand, and I think that works quite nicely to be a stand-in for a Carnifex. But as I said, let me know what you think. So the other, let's move that to one side. The other arm underneath, I want quite a, let's go for that one just there. I want this one to be quite close to the side so it doesn't interrupt any of the scenery on this base. Yeah, if you want to see more of this build, give a like, drop it in the comments, as if no one seems that interested in it, I'll just do it off camera. But if anyone's interested, even if it's just one person, I'm quite happy to put the video together. Okay. Ooh, first drop. Might not be the first drop. A drop. Okay, that's going to go just there. Probably missed a few mould lines and I'll have to kind of come back to them. And I've just pulled the leg off. So we'll glue that back on. But as I say with these videos, it's warts and all. Let's make sure we get that leg glued back on. When I first put it in place, I did move it a little bit too much, and I don't think I got a nice clean surface for the glue to kind of dry. There we go. It's splooged out a bit there, so I'll have to clean that up later. But for now, let's bring this in. And yeah, that's going to fit really quite nicely there. Okay, I think what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to get some trusty blue tack and I'm going to stick these other ones down with blue tack, and then I'm going to start having a think about what else to do to the base and that kind of thing. But I want to see these in place to get an idea of what it's looking like, but also give you guys an idea as well. And if you have any suggestions, like I keep saying, chuck it in the comments. Let's get that on there. Seems to be there's a bit of a, you know, there won't be too much of a gap when it gets painted and everything, but hey, let's put a blob of blue tack on the back here and just sit this guy into that blue tack. There we go. Okay, let's have a little look at this for the poses for now. Yeah, I'm really liking how that's turning out. Okay, I'm going to take some photos of this, put it at the end of the video, take a look, see what you think. Any comments or any suggestions, let me know. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching Wargames, Models, and Other Hobbies.